Let's just cut right to it. Your band tunes down to drop A, or hell, maybe even drop F. You track the bass, you slap on some stock amp sim, and boom. Suddenly, your entire mix sounds like an absolute swamp, right? You sit there, you're blaming your guitar tone, thinking it lacks crunch, or maybe you think your drummer's kick is just weak. Well, the reality is, your bass player is suffocating the entire soundstage. And it's happening right here on the mixing desk, because honestly, most of you are falling for these bedroom mixing myths. So sit down, grab a coffee. We're doing a full explainer today on fixing your low end before you ruin another track.
Okay, we call this the transient murder zone. Your bassist is literally suffocating your mix because they, and let's be real, probably you too, are treating low-frequency energy like a standard electric guitar. You can't just plug a drop F bass into a high-gain pedal and expect magic. I mean, I see this mistake every single week. A bass guitar isn't just a low-pitched sixth string, okay? It is a massive dynamic pendulum of acoustic energy. When you treat it like a regular guitar, you completely destroy the exact thing that makes it cut through a dense metal mix, the transient. You're basically treating a wrecking ball like a scalpel, and it is absolutely killing your track.
So, you might be wondering, why exactly does your drop F bass sound like a swamp? Well, welcome to the high-gain compression trap. When a bassist plays in these extreme low-drop tunings, they generate these massive, unruly sub-low fundamental frequencies. We're talking everything below 100 Hz. If you feed all that straight into a standard guitar-style compressor, or maybe a slow optical compressor, that compressor straight up panics. It sees this massive wave of energy, and it just clamps down incredibly hard. It completely crushes the essential transient attack, that physical clack of the pick or the finger hitting the string. And without that clack, you don't have a bass. You just have this weird earthquake happening in the background of your mix that no one can actually hear.
Just look at the weak, negative peak amplitude happening here. This right here is the mathematical collision of acoustic energy just absolutely destroying your headroom. Think about the physics for a second. Energy is proportional to the square of the amplitude and frequency. I've literally had guys bring $5,000 8-string guitars into my studio that end up sounding like wet paper. Why? Because their bass was just this unstable, woolly sludge. When the compressor panics and crushes that physical clock we just talked about, you're left with dead weight. That sludge masks the 60 Hz punch of your kick drum. The kick vanishes, the guitars lose all their teeth, and you're just left staring at your monitors wondering where all the aggression went.
Right, so how do we fix this mess? We stop guessing, and we start using forensic studio techniques. Enter virtual biamping. Now, this isn't some secret mystical trick. This is mandatory standard operating procedure if you actually want arena-level tone. What we're doing is taking a single clean DI signal and splitting it into completely isolated frequency matrices before it hits any processing whatsoever. We are separating the dynamics of the lows from the harmonics of the highs. If you want maximum control and actual sonic fidelity, you absolutely have to divide and conquer. No two ways about it. Check out the unprocessed, phasey mess on the left. It's totally plagued by low-frequency oscillation. Now compare that to the clean, segmented paths on the right. Night and day, right? This is exactly why single-track bass processing is a bedroom mixing myth that needs to die right now. You simply cannot get a massive, clean, sub-bass foundation and an aggressive, distorted layer from a single distorted amp tone. It doesn't work. Heavy distortion adds complex harmonics and super unpredictable low-end rumble. Trying to do it all on one track? That's a guaranteed recipe for a phasey, undefined mess. It's like trying to paint a masterpiece with a thick paint roller. Okay, so here is how we actually architect the split. We build a dual signal setup. Path 1, let's call it the violet subwave, is your clean sub-bass block. We strictly filter this using a low-pass filter, so it only contains frequencies below 100, or maybe up to 200 Hz. Then you've got path 2, the yellow transient wave, which is your mid to high block. We use a high-pass filter here to aggressively chop out everything below that exact same frequency. We're basically carving the bass right down the middle so the two paths never fight each other. They operate totally independently, which means your low end stays pristine and clean while your top end gets absolutely filthy. Let's talk about that violet subwave first. The entire goal here is pure, unwavering foundation. We want to lock down those sub-frequencies so they don't jump around in volume and completely blow out your speakers. To do this, you grab an aggressive 1176 style VCA compressor. You set the ratio extremely high. I'm talking even up to 20:1, basically acting as a brick wall limiter. You want an ultra-fast attack, around 1 millisecond, and a fast release. Then you pull that threshold down until you are hammering it with 10 to 20 decibels of gain reduction. Seriously, no mercy here. You hold that low end perfectly flat, like a solid, unmoving brick. If you look at it on your screen, it should literally look like a block of concrete. Next up, we handled the yellow transient wave, the grit track. Remember, the goal here isn't to get a nice bass tone.
It's to create a chainsaw mid-range that can actually fight for space with those heavy guitars. Because you've already high-passed this signal above 100 Hz, you can absolutely obliterate it with distortion without turning the low end into total mud. You drive this path with something like a Darkglass B7K or a SandSamp. I've tracked hundreds of bands using exactly this method. This preserves the string definition, the pick attack, and that aggressive metallic rattle. We push the high mids, right around that 800 Hz to 2 kHz pocket, so the bass just cuts right through the mix, whether you're listening on huge studio monitors or a tiny phone speaker.
All right, here is the exact routing blueprint. Take notes, because this is crucial. Step 1, record a perfect, clean DI track, and then duplicate it in your DAW. Don't process anything yet. Step 2, on that first track, apply a steep low-pass filter below 100 to 200 Hz and absolutely smash it with that fast VCA compressor like we just talked about. Step 3, on the second track, high-pass filter it at the exact same crossover point and drive it super hard with saturation, fuzz, or your favorite amp sims. Step 4, blend the two matrices back together. Always start with your low-end foundation, get it sitting perfectly with the kick drum, and then slowly bring up that grit track until it bites right into the guitars.
But hold on, we are not done yet. This right here is the final integration step where amateur mixes fail and pro mixes actually succeed. Beating frequency masking. See, even with the bass totally dialed in, it still has to live in the same house as the kick drum. If those two overlap, you get that muddy, resonant low end that just overloads the whole mix. So we fix this by sidechaining the sub-bass to the kick drum. But wait, don't just duck the whole bass track. Use a multi-band compressor like FabFilter Pro MB. Set it to target only that 20 to 100 Hz region. Give it a fast attack, a release time to the tempo of the song, and aim for just 3 to 6 decibels of gain reduction. This way, every single time the kick hits, it cleanly ducks the subfrequencies out of the way, but leaves your chainsaw mid-grit completely untouched.
And that, my friends, is exactly how arena-level modern metal tracks are built. It's not magic, it's just solid bass crossover engineering. So stop letting your undisciplined sub-bass suffocate your guitar tracks. Take control of the transients, split your matrices, and tame those subs. Now, I've got a challenge for you. I want you to go into your DAW right now, duplicate that DI, and set up this crossover. Then jump down into the comments, tell me your band's absolute lowest tuning, and subscribe to the toll manual so you can finally stop ruining your tracks. All right, get to work.